Hello and welcome to Bristol Sport TV. Well, as the global pandemic of coronavirus continues to impact our world, each week we're bringing you news from across our sporting group, talking to our staff, our players and our coaches to find out how they are coping with life in lockdown, albeit as it is gradually easing. Well, this week, I'm pleased to say that I'm joined by two of our coaching staff. I can welcome Dean Holden, who is assistant coach for Bristol City men, and Conor McPhillips, who's assistant coach for Bristol Bears men. Guys, welcome to you. Thanks for joining us. And it's a busy life at home for all of you. Dean, in the Holden household, particularly busy.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's been quite chaotic with homeschooling and stuff like that. Love spending time with the family, of course, but badly missing the day-to-day, the people that you work with, and actually being competitive with trying to get results to get us promoted. But great to see a couple of smiley faces from the organisation. It's been too long, and looking forward to getting out the house and getting back at it.
Yeah, it is. It is almost that sort of social isolation in the, in the house. If you're in busy households like you are with 4 young children, chaotic at home and nice almost to get back to the office, aside from the love of wanting sport to return. Conor, similar for you, you've got 9-year-old twins.
Hi, Dean. Hi, Lisa. Challenging, but I think all healthy, which is the main thing in these tough times. So we're finding new things we have in common, and we're trying to make ourselves better. So trying to look at the positives in a pretty tough situation.
Yeah, of course. Well, both of you, had the seasons paused at a moment where you were sort of seized, in the ascendancy. City just a point off the players, with Bears punching for the European Cup positions. In terms of how you've adapted and coped with this, Dean, let's start with football first, because of course you guys have probably maintained more of a semblance of normality, if you like, in that all of the, your coaching staff and the players are still training and actively, albeit behind closed doors and at home.
Yeah, I think it's been a process. I think due to the uncertainty and nobody quite knowing how long this was going to go for, that we were preparing for the Blackburn Rovers away game on the Friday, and literally all of a sudden Mark Ashton came to the training ground and announced the lockdown sort of measures from that moment. So from that moment, we've seen each other via Zoom a lot. Something we'd never heard of 6 weeks ago, Zoom, but we've done lots of physical sort of circuit type things with the players, lots of sort of bonding with quiz nights and bingo and all that type of stuff as well. So I think it's important to keep that connection with not just the players but with the staff as well, because some of these, certainly the players are young people, some of them away from home, away from families, and just to get that face to face is not, it's not perfect. Of course, you're not right stood next to them and sort of being able to get a real feel, but certainly face to face, FaceTime and Zooms has been really important for us, as I say, to keep that connection, just basically keep everybody in our thoughts, and that we're all thinking about them, and then more importantly making sure once we get the go ahead that we're ready to hit the ground running, and we feel really confident that we're in a good position, ready to go.
Yeah, well, I mean, Conor, of course, from a planning point of view, I guess the Bears coaches have had more of an opportunity for that because, of course, the players were furloughed. So just talk us through how that time has been, because I guess that's all about building that momentum to be, one of the top teams in Europe.
Yeah, of course. I think very similar to Dean and City. If you said to us 10 weeks ago that we'd be 10 weeks without playing, we might have got a bit of a shock. But I think Pat's alluded to it before, that obviously we have a good leader there, but our whole staff, our heads of department, we've tried to come up with plans for all scenarios. So in theory, if we were to start back training on next Monday, we'd be ready to go. Our medical staff are ready to go with all their PPE equipment, and hopefully we can cover every scenario, whether it's small group training, solo training, and we're ready to go.
Yeah, having a plan and being ready for anything, that's always a good starting point, isn't it? Now, I know both of you are kind of really into your sporting coaching, sort of reading up on the latest insight and cross-sharing. I know you guys have both spent time with your respective clubs, cross-pollinating, if you like, ideas. And of course, in the absence of any actual live sporting leagues continuing, the phenomenal success of the Netflix series, The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, has been, I know, one of your staples in both of your households. So perhaps, Dean, start us off with, what as a coach watching it, I mean, everyone would kill to have Michael Jordan on their team, wouldn't they?
Yeah, wow, it's incredible. I mean, memories from, show me age now, but memories of growing up and watching them, performing at that level is incredible insight from the documentary. I mean, I sort of got into the NFL sort of all or nothing series where they do something similar with different American football teams, and it's fascinating insight to see, as you say there, behind the scenes, the planning that goes into team meetings and the way that the coaches sort of relate to the players and stuff like that. But this one in particular, it has fascinated me the most because you've got the biggest star on the planet. And when Coach Jackson got the job, he actually gave a little bit more responsibility towards other members of the team. And the way that he was able to do that to the biggest star on the planet was really interesting. And I think it just shows you, if you're talking about leadership, excuse me, he's a Zen Buddhist, Phil Jackson, which is one end of the extreme compared to maybe an Alex Ferguson or something at the other end of the spectrum with the airdryer treatment and stuff. So I think it just shows you that the books I've read and the webinars and the seminars and stuff that we've done in this lockdown and stuff, I think there's so much to learn. It's a skill. It's a real skill to be able to relate to people and get the best from them. And the way I look at it probably would be that I think the main thing in all of it is you've got to try and be as true to yourself as possible, as authentic as yourself. So yeah, watch the series. Wow, look at the way that he handled that situation when Dennis Rodman goes away for 2 days, which turned into nearly a week. But again, you can only take some ideas and then you've got to apply it to yourself and your own sort of values and what you sort of truly believe in, I suppose. So it's been, yeah, as you say, the most fascinating documentary I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Dennis Rodman clip where he, gives him 48 hours sanctioned leave and it turns into however many days that he disappears off to Las Vegas for. I mean, you referenced there that the City squad is quite a young squad, and everyone talks about the fact that footballers, these youngsters have got a lot of money, and actually it's about them taking control and being responsible for their own selves. And actually, probably as you reference, it's probably better for the players to almost self-regulate that and to buy into the overall culture rather than someone standing over you trying to rule, as you say, by fear. Yeah,
and as I say, there's different along the spectrum. There's certain times when the manager will need to be the voice and will need to be a little bit more demanding. And when, depending on the circumstance, might be a half-time team talk, or maybe even Macca might need to do that. But yeah, there's along the week and certainly along the 9 month slog of a season, there's many times where you can sort of go from one end of the spectrum to the other within the leadership. I think the crucial thing in all of it is getting a relationship with the people you work with, whether that's the players or the staff, and showing that you care about them and their story and where they've come from. Because as soon as you can, I think it's a little bit like, I think back to the best teacher that I had at school. Maybe wasn't the best teacher in terms of being at all the grades, but why did I connect with that certain teacher? There was not a friendship, but there was certainly a relationship there where you felt that you could trust them. And to build that culture can take time, and that's something that Lee's managed to do over the 4 years of being at the club. We've managed to build this culture now where the players, they've got to be free from ridicule. If they're going to have a voice, they need to be able to voice it and know that they're not going to be shot down. So again, it's building them leaders, and that's a fascinating part of the assistant job. I think is watching these youngsters coming through from the academy into the first team, and all of a sudden then getting a voice within team meetings, and then gaining confidence from that, and then becoming maybe the captain of the team, and seeing their performances become all the better for it.
Yeah, I mean, Conor, Dean's reference there, almost that sort of taking from rugby, the idea of these, you've always had this sort of inner core sort of senior coaching teams within the team that have a voice. I remember when Pat first came in, one of the things he talked about was that it's a family, and your family you love, and you always go the extra mile for your family. That comes across very clearly in The Last Dance, but it's also very much that Bears culture that you lay down for your teammate.
Yeah, and 100% agree with Dean. It's all about relationships, player to player relationship, player to coach. That's where Jordan, he was a lot about the stick, and obviously he set high standards and never asked anyone to do something he wouldn't do. But there was maybe times he could have shown a little bit more empathy. And I think that's important for coaches. I think Phil Jackson would have stepped in a few times if he thought that Jordan was going too far, and we added a bit of empathy. So I think that's really important. You can obviously with so many different nationalities and cultures all in rugby, everyone is equal, but we're all quite different in our ways. So how you speak to one person may not resonate, and you gotta understand that individual and what makes him tick. So you gotta, as Dean said, work on that spectrum.
Yeah, and Dean, I mean, I guess for you guys, in terms of picking up on that, the work that's gone on behind the scenes, I mean, certainly talking to both Garys last week about the work that goes on in the academies, you can talk about culture all you like, but actually often in moments and times of crisis and difficulty is when that culture really comes to the fore. And I think from, looking at City, you can really see that exemplified, and same with Bears, from absolutely the youngest age right the way through to the first team.
Yeah, there's a real link there I think that's there for all to see from the academy, and I think the people and the coaches and the people that work in the academy feel really valued for that, because I think there is that link there. I think only on one morning this week, the gaffer was on with the academy. I think 130 odd players from the academy talking through scenarios and trying to give them some guidance and some expert advice from his way of thinking. So again, that, you know, not that doesn't exist at every club. We've got to be, you know, I've worked for many clubs as a player and as a coach, and that certainly doesn't go on. So that's an amazing thing to see, because culture's not around, you know, the idea of a slogan on the wall, or I mean, you can go into some places in some work scenarios where you can't see the paint on the wall for slogans and we are this and we are that. And do they actually live it? What is culture really? It's about people and building relationships and looking after your own, as Conor just touched on. None more so than in this lockdown. Yeah.
Well, you reference about it's a young squad within the City squad. Of course, we've got a young coaching team as well across both sports. And I know that all of you are constantly trying to improve and learn, and are always talking about the learning and the different insights that you can get from not just each other within the group, but I know, Dean, like you've spent some time with, I think, Stuart Lancaster and Paul Nichols from the horse training world. Just talk us through some of the things and the insights that you think, because I guess at the end of the day, sport is sport.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to do that, and I think to get away from the football, because football as an industry, as a business, can be quite institutionalised in its way of thinking sometimes. So I think it's important to get into other sports, Formula One. Even Sir Dave Brailsford, who's obviously at Team Ineos, used to be at Team Sky now, was fascinating, because they can see it slightly differently than what we've been brought up with in football. So to meet these guys and to get their expert advice, I mean, only in lockdown we've been able to speak to sort of Gareth Southgate and Chris Coleman around, you know, the idea of a tournament scenario, because we're going into 9 games with the best, most unbelievable carrot at the end of it of promotion to the Premier League, and that's absolutely our aim. So, you know, what gains can we get from them types of guys that have lived this tournament scenario, and what can we use and help the players with? And that's all it is really. It's trying to broaden your thinking. It's trying to spend your time wisely away from the club. It's trying to learn. And we're lucky at the club in every department. I would get to say now, from where we are, is that every single person within each department has got that hunger and that desire, and is always testing each other. Every team meeting we have is videoed, and if it's maybe me taking it, we'll do a debrief afterwards, and people will be quizzing me about why you said this, why you said that. And we're always trying to learn all these little nuances, I suppose, because at the end of the day, it's about the players going on the pitch and winning 3 points for Bristol City. That's all it's about.
Yeah, well, as you were referencing there, it's almost like this mindset of going into a kind of end stage tournament with those last final 9 games, and of course a return to training hopefully imminent.
Yeah, as Conor touched on before, we've been planning from the very beginning. We feel ahead of the curve in that we're ready to go. The players they had a little bit of downtime halfway through lockdown, but they did some physical fitness testing at home on Saturday, which was done again by Zoom, and all the results are being sent into the club and through modern technology, and they're looking really fit. So we're really excited about it, getting back as a group now. Yeah, we're hoping early part of next week we can get together at the training ground, maybe again in small groups. We're prepared for that. If that changes in the next coming days, we've got the next sort of phase ready to go to bigger groups and stuff. So it's quite exciting actually, because nobody, as I say, it's all unprecedented. No one quite knows. So to be able to plan and just be, as soon as you move on to the next plan and get rid of that one, right, you know, nothing's going to catch us out, we would like to think. So a lot of hard work's gone in behind the scenes from a lot of members of staff in the support staff, I have to say. And obviously we're really thankful for that, and hopefully we're giving the players every chance.
Yeah, well, for those people watching that aren't involved with, full-time professional sport, as you guys live, sleep, eat and breathe it, just kind of talk us through some of the difficulties and how hard it will be to return to match fitness. Because, of course, a lot of people outside looking in think, well, players stay fit, they can play the next day. How hard can that be?
I think this is where we have a lot of belief in our planning to date. The boys have had access to some excellent sessions. We're monitoring with GPS when we're allowed, with them, knowing how far the guys have run, how hard they've run, their accels, their decels. So our thing is that we want to bridge the gap between this lockdown and performing. So there's a few going the bridge for that, but I think if the players can keep maintaining their fitness, getting better skills, and it's about raising capacity. I think the biggest issue is when players get back, I think from we've seen from other leagues, from the Bundesliga and the NRL and the AFL in Australia, there's a lot of more injuries, soft tissue injuries. So I think our game is based on we run a lot with the ball. We back ourselves. We back our skills. So I think all our programs are geared towards how we want to play the game, but more importantly, how we're going to train when we get back from this lockdown.
I have enjoyed watching some of the social media videos from the Bears, particularly of the substitutes for scrummaging and packs and, you know, pushing cars uphill and those sort of things. What's been the quirkiest one that you've had sent in as a coach?
Oh, I think obviously DT on his farm, he really enjoys his catch, pretty creative there. I really enjoyed the challenge between the men and the women with the gymnastics and the Greatest Showman. So a lot of skills and talent that I probably didn't realize some of our boys had, which maybe we can bring to the fore when we get back, whether they like it or not.
Yes, watching a calf being, you know, doing squats with a calf across your shoulders was fairly unique. And yes, the gymnastics challenge. I was just wanting to see one from, you know, the footballers. Dean, I think you missed a trick. I know you like The Greatest Showman.
And they like wearing tights.
Dean in tights. There we go.
Things I've learned in lockdown. I've never even heard of TikTok before, and now it's just I think the players. In fairness, I think if this lockdown was going to happen at any time in my lifetime, now would be the time in terms of social media, because I can imagine 20 years ago it would have been really tough for thinking to my kids at home, not being able to see their mates. Obviously now with FaceTime and Zoom and TikTok, and there's a real way of connecting through modern technology now. So that's actually been we've spent a little bit of time with the players on these daft stuff, and again it just keeps that team spirit going, because they're not seeing each other. These players are used to competing every single day, whether it's a warm-up, whether it's playing, whatever it is, tiddlywinks on the coach to the game. They're used to competing, and without that, the mental side of it can be really tough for them, to be fair. So I think little things like that and the stuff we've done on the Zoom, and as I said before, with some of the bonding that we've been able to do, it's hopefully kept as much of that spirit as possible, because that's going to be huge again in this slog of 9 games in such a short space of time. There's going to be loads of ups and downs in that. We're not going to play amazing for every single minute of every game. So being able to keep a sort of balance on that is going to be important for us. Yeah.
Conor referenced the return, of course, Bundesliga, the first return of sort of professional football within Europe, and all eyes was watching the Bundesliga last weekend and how that went. And one of the things that struck me particularly is people had talked a lot about the effect of the ambience of not having that crowd and the noise to stimulate the players. Do you envisage that affecting the players, Dean? How do you think they're preparing themselves mentally to be playing effectively in empty stadiums?
Wasn't it great to see the live football coming back? Saturday was brilliant, just game after game. But and we got some great insight. One of our former players, Jens Hegler, he's really in touch with quite a lot of German players through the company that he's running now, like a analytical company. So I spoke to him yesterday morning and got some real good insight from players involved in some of the big teams out in the Bundesliga. Because the first thing I noticed when they're coming out of the tunnel was just that air of just relaxed and calmness within the players on the pitch. Almost it felt like a training session, and how we're preparing for a game. So we've worked for a long time pre-lockdown around the idea of getting into game state. What does that feel like in the dressing room? Because again, back in the day, it used to be blaring music could be going and everything was tailored towards the group, whereas now it's very individualised. Certain lads will have the earphones in if they want certain music, and we're very much prepared for the idea of when you're walking into the tunnel to get into that state, and we've looked at again other sports and the way that you can do that. So that's going to be a big test. And one of the other things as well is that it's not a normal pre-season whereby you go and play in 3, 4, 5 pre-season games. So as Conor touched on before, the way that you sort of work your training schedule around and when can we go into the actual contact? How early before our first game against Blackburn Rovers are we going to be able to go into like an 11v11 scenario in training? So again, we've got to be smart with the way that we plan, but all them boxes are ticked, hopefully. And as I say, it's just a case of just choosing the right moments to get the players ready.
Yeah, well, as you said, it has been lovely watching some live football come back, and does give us that hint of looking forward to either the resumption of the season or certainly looking forward to next season. And Conor, of course, bears avidly looking forward to next season because a number of new signing recruits, not least Siva joining, announced this week.
Yeah, I think Steve is a really exciting one. He's obviously he's 28. He's not young, but he's achieved a lot in his career to date. Obviously, he was a union player first. Obviously, joined the army, and obviously when met a lot of did a lot of stuff with the Army and the Navy, and you can see how disciplined they are and respectful, and how good they are working in teams. So I think his character and his personality will be a really good fit for the Bears. But I think also, obviously he's got Fijian heritage. Obviously we brought in Semi and Nathan Hughes is here, so they can help him settle in. But Steve is exciting. He took to rugby league very quickly for someone. He's only played for 2 years, and I think he's one of the standout players in that competition, and he's scoring tries for fun. So I think when myself and Pat met him, he was an impressive character. He was typical Fijian, quietly spoken, but very, very polite and driven. So I think we've got a good fit as a person. And obviously everyone's seen the YouTube clips and of course the clips the media team put out, which are fun. But he'll compete. He'll put pressure on the other back three players, and he's a little bit of a diamond for us.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from a media perspective, I guess there's been quite a few headline players switching from rugby league to rugby union, and at varying levels of success. And I guess probably one of the most successful ones was Jason Robinson.
Yeah, I think it is a little bit easier for the back three players to maybe transition from code to code. There's less probably physical positional difficulties there, but I think it's exciting. Like obviously Billy Wiz was a leader. He conquered union and league. He was probably the best player at some stage in both those codes. And he was someone I grew up admiring and was lucky enough to play against. So that was a great highlight for me. But I think even if Siva could emulate any of that sort of thing, the Bears would be happy.
Yeah, I'm sure we would, Dean. I know you were smiling when we were referencing Jason Robinson, bringing back happy memories of almost childhood.
Growing up, I didn't support Salford where I'm from as a kid. It was more about Wigan. My dad was a Wigan fan, so yeah, going watching that team there that Conor's talking around, the Kelvin Skerritt, Mal Meninga. It was some great memories watching Wigan growing up and dominating. When the Challenge Cup final used to be at Wembley, and I can still hear that. I can't remember his name, the commentator's voice. It was amazing to think back to that. I used to play rugby quite a lot as a kid as well, growing up. So yeah, as you say, some top people. We was on a seminar last night, myself and the coaches with Gareth Southgate was on there, and Michael Carrick was presenting something, and there was one or two top rugby people on there as well. As you said before, Stuart Lancaster was on there giving some great insight, and Owen Farrell was on there, and again his old man was one of the best as well. I think when he started with rugby league and Wigan captain, and then became a top coach in a different, not a different sport of course, but slightly different code in rugby union. So yeah.
You mentioned the whole coaching. I mean, how do you approach that? I always used to watch Andy Farrell coach, thinking, it must be amazing on the one hand, amazing to coach your child, but also what a complete nightmare, especially when you're then coaching different teams. Conor, you could probably reflect more with 9-year-old twins. That might befall you.
That's my wife just bringing me a cup of tea, so apologies for that.
Glad she's looking after you. Conor.
Andy was really lucky. He obviously got to play with Owen at Saracens, and I think Andy was, like as Dean said, Andy was a captain of Wigan, and he was probably one of the best leaders in the league. And you can definitely see that filter down now through into Owen's personality and how he carries himself, how good a professional he is, and how he leads. And I think you see a lot of the number 10s, like there's Owen Farrell, Dan Bigger, and Johnny Sexton. You go back to the Michael Jordan stuff. These guys push standards. They want to be the best. They often potentially lose their temper but it's their competitiveness. It's their drive to win, and they drive the people around them. A lot of the time, people can get a bit frustrated with how they speak to referees, or maybe they can see them maybe get into their own team. But it just comes back to that competitiveness. And these guys are leaders in their team, and they expect the highest standards from everyone. And I think I suppose a coach coaching his son or a member of the family, they're probably quite similar in personality. So there might be a lot of alignment, but also a lot of clashes. And I think definitely having twin boys, everything's a competition. Getting dressed in the morning, brushing their teeth, going to the toilet. They've had 10 weeks in each other's pockets now, so there's been a fair few scuffles. But they're best buddies, and they thrive off each other.
Yeah. The little insight there. Right. Have you had your cup of tea now, Dino? I'm glad you keeping hydrated.
The biscuits as well that she was thrown in, which I've been eating probably too many of them in lockdown. So
So you lead us seamlessly on to how we've talked a lot about how we've kept, how you guys have kept the players motivated and in touch, and how you're planning for next season. But just from a personal point of view, how have you found the lockdown? I mean, aside from being able to actually spend some quality time with family life, have you stayed sane, Dino? You talked about conference calls with your coaching team, with Lee and with Macca. I know you guys are good friends as well as colleagues.
Yeah, I think the first little bit of time was nice. I won't lie, it was great to spend some time with the kids and to really bond as a family and to try to maximise this opportunity, which it is, to be at home with the family. At the same time, getting a structure in the day was really important for me. We have a staff meeting most mornings, and we go through the plan for the day. And obviously, we're spending a lot of time sort of now, as you say, off the grass, kind of preparing. So we're looking at recruitment's a big thing now. There's a website called Y Scout where we can look at any player across the world, really. So spending quite a bit of time with that. Obviously, preparing for our opposition coming up, the games that they've played previously this season, and looking at the strategies as to way we can beat them, and obviously looking at our own games as well. But a lot of the time's been spent on speaking to Lee, speaking to Macca and some of the other staff around just ways that we can improve things, using our time as effectively as we can. So the way that we prepare our meetings, the way that we train, and as you say, talking to some of these, and that's been a real help to us, is being able to have that access to some of these top people all over the world. And again, not just in sport, and just to gain an insight. And sometimes it's just a connection through LinkedIn. I've done that quite a bit. Just followed someone and probably thinking, who's this stalker? And literally just sending a nice message to say, is there any chance? And it ends in a 20-minute or half an hour Zoom call with someone on the other side of the world who you never thought you'd be able to get in front of. So again, we're picking up little bits between us all, sharing ideas, hopefully as I say, all about the benefit of using it effectively once the time comes in the next few weeks. Can't wait for it.
My sanity is having a jog, and near where I go is out around the Bears training ground and the back of, and I have occasionally been sending photos of the training ground to various players, both the City ground and the Bears ground, because obviously they'll be in close proximity once the new Bear training ground opens. And it is phenomenal. I have to say, every time I go past there, it raises your spirits. I think, it's not going to be long now, Conor, till you're there.
Yeah, I think I managed to get up there last week. Just myself and Pat just had a look around and check the flow of the whole organisation. But really exciting. Obviously, COVID has put a bit of a stop on it, but we're all on track to be in there in the first week of July. So a lot of work going on, like sensible work with their social distancing and timing of things. And I think it's long days for people, but it's been great. Mark Taints has been up there a lot and giving us information and showing us pictures and developments. But I think anyone who goes up there, there's a real sense of pride. And obviously we've got Ashton Gate, which is probably the best rugby stadium in the country. Now we're going to probably be the envy again with the best training facility in the country, if not Europe. So it's obviously great for the group going in, great for being a real attractive club to come and join with all the facilities we have, but also a bit of pressure. I know when Steve Lansdowne and Chris Boy and Pat and Mark Taints were there previously, they talked about we've obviously come from maybe some humble beginnings in our facilities, and we've done quite well, but just how we can maximize what we do when we go to a purpose-built facility. So some pressure, but it's exciting. It's we won't want for renting. Pat had the look to influence how the building was going to flow. So it's all about managing time, making sure everyone's accessible, everyone's connected, and it's a really good environment for performance and culture.
Yeah, well, you talk about that and that aspirational performance, and Dean, from a City point of view, gosh, it seems so long ago now that we were talking about, the commencement of building the new training ground, and how crucial that'll be for the next phase and for Premier League status, not least attracting players.
Yeah, that'll be huge for the club. I think probably the biggest thing in all of it will be able to get the academy onto one site, and for everybody to be, as you talked about before, that joined up thinking, and a lot more accessibility between coaching staff and obviously players. But it's going to be a real exciting time for the football club. It's some of the stuff that's going on there, and some of the facilities we're going to be able to work in. He's for a young coach, like you say, the young coaching team is very, very, very exciting, I have to say. And yeah, as you said there, every time you go past and you see it sort of get closer and closer, it's frustrating as well at the same time, I've got to be honest, because you just want to be out there and doing what you love. But no, it's in terms of the next little bit of short term for the future for the football club. We're very excited, yeah.
Yeah, well, here's to getting back and doing what we love sooner rather than later. Guys, thanks very much for joining us. It's been great to talk to you. Stay safe and look forward to seeing you physically back at Ashton Gate soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
See you soon, guys.
Well, that's it from us for this week. Hope you enjoyed the programme. As the lockdown measures continue to ease, make sure you do follow us across our social media platforms so you are across all of the very latest breaking news. Until next week, goodbye.